started, or on Mem Gimel Mem Beis for those that weren't with us yet last night. So we went a little bit further last night. So we're on Mem Gimel Mem Beis 43b. At the bottom, there's a new Mishnah. So let's get started. Let's take a look. The Mishnah says, Rabbi Yossi Omer. Rabbi Yossi says, Shochik v'zor l'ruach. Person finds an idol that's made out of metal, something like that. He can grind it up and scatter it in the wind, or mataliyam, or throw it into the ocean, so that a person won't come to go and get benefit from it. The way he'll get rid of it is through either scattering in the wind, letting it go, or putting it in the ocean. Amrlo, they said to Rabbi Yossi, Afu nasazeva. If you do this, if you throw it in, if you scatter in the wind, people still are going to get benefit from the idols, because people are going to get benefit from it as being fertilizer. That if it scatters in the wind, it's going to go out and that's going to help things grow in fields. V'nemar, and it said in the pasuk, that you're not attaching your hand to anything from the cherim. This pasuk is referring to Avodah Zora. It's referring to idol worship. And it says that anything that has any connection to idols, you cannot have anything in your hand, mu'uma, at all. So the pasuk is emphasizing that you can't get any benefit at all, and therefore the Rabbanan feel is that if you scatter it in the wind, that's going to help in terms of fertilizer, and people are going to get benefit in terms of that. So let's see the Gemara. The Gemara says Tanya. It's taught on a brayso. Omerlem Rabbi Yossi, v'alo kvar nemar. The pasuk says v'aschatasem and your sin asher asisem, that you made us an egel, the calf. L'kachti, I took it. The esrof oso ve'ish, I burnt it in the fire. The echoes oso tachon hete, adasher dok. The offer, and I pounded it, ground it very well until it was thin to dust. The ashlech asaporo, and I threw the dust al into the stream. I yored minahar, that was going down from the mountain. So Rabbi Yossi, this pasuk is trying to show from this pasuk, just talking about the egel, talking about the golden calf, that Moshe, when recounting the story in Parashat Zekev, he says that I went ahead and I ground it up, and I threw the dust into the stream. So we see from here that it's okay to take an Avodah Zora, take an idol, and scatter it and throw it. We don't have to worry about the fact that it's going to end up causing things to grow. So Amrullah, they said back to him, Misham Raya, is it a proof from there? How are you, Omer? By Yozer Apnei Amayim, by Yashkes Bnei Yisrael. The pasuk says, this pasuk is by the actual story in Kisisa. It says Moshe took the egel, he burnt it in the fire, he ground it up till it was very thin, and then by Yozer Apnei Amayim, he scattered it on the water. By Yashkes Bnei Yisrael, and he gave the Jews to drink. He gave them to drink from this water that had the dust of the egel mixed into it. So the way Rashi explains this step of the Gemara is that when it's thrown into the water, then there's no concern of it being fertilizer. It's only when it's being scattered in the air. So since Moshe was put it of a yiza pnei hamayim, he scattered onto the waters, then there's no concern of the fertilizer. Now you might be bothered by, though, that once Moshe is throwing into water, why do you throw it specifically into this water? So the Gemara says that Lonuskavin al bodkon kesotos. His intention was to check them like a sota. Now we know the idea in the Torah of a sota. Sota is a lady who there's suspicion that she had lived with another man while she was married. So there's a process of her drinking certain water with Hashem's name mixed in, and if she indeed had done this act, the water would affect her and it would cause her to blow up. So over here too, the Jews, Moshe gave the Jews to drink from this water that the egel mixed in, the pieces of the egel, and that was supposed to check them to see if they sinned or not. The water would determine had they sinned, and if they did sin, the water would cause them to get some sort of sickness. It's hadroken sickness, Rashi explained, and that's why Moshe did this. So now Rabbi Yossi tries to bring a new proof. Rabbi Yossi said to them, doesn't the pasuk say, "Begam macha imo hisira migviro asher osaso Asher also saw miflotes, begomer, etc. Vayido vayisro b'nachal kidron. So this is a pasuk talking about Asa, the king Asa, and it says that also Macha, his own mother, Asa's mother Macha, he removed her from her position of being queen, of being a position of authority, because she did this word maflotza, which later on we're going to translate it. The Gemara is going to determine what this means. And by Yidok, he grounded up. By Yisro, he burnt it benachal kidron, in the Kidron stream. So Asa was on a tier trying to get rid of all the idol worship. So one of the idol worshippers was his own mother. And we see from here is that he took whatever idol she worshipped, he ground it up, and he had scattered it. So they said, Amrullah, they said to him, Misham Raya, is from there is a proof. But Nachal Kidron Enim Gadol Tzmachim, that over Nachal Kidron, the stream of Kidron does not grow sprouts, doesn't grow any vegetation. And therefore, the whole concern is that if you scatter it and you let it go wild, it's going to help vegetation grow, and it's going to end up being a benefit from the Avodah Zora on those terms. But by Nachal Kidron, there is no vegetation. So there's no concern. There's no proof from there. So the Gemara says back below, is that true? Is that true that Nachal Kidron does not cause vegetation to grow? But Tanya, Bastana Brisa, Elu ve'elu misarvin ba'ama, these and these get mixed together in the Amma, which Rashi explains that this is referring to Yom Kippur, that the blood that was spilled on the outside of the Beis HaMikdash and the blood on the inside, both of the leftover blood of both of them were poured on the base of the Mizbeach, on the base of the altar, and they would trickle down to the floor, and they would get mixed together in the Amma. The Amma was this little pipe of water that was in the courtyard, and this pipe would bring them Yotzim Nachal Kidron. This pipe would bring the blood to Nachal Kidron. It was sold to gardeners, to people planted things as for fertilizer, and there's me'ilah with them, which Rashi explains it doesn't literally mean that there's me'ilah, that you have to bring like a sacrifice if you get benefit from it. Rather, it means because there is no me'ilah when it comes to blood of kachim. But rather, what it means is that it's forbidden to get benefit from it unless you pay for it. What we see from here is that it was sold. Went down to Nachal Kidron and it was sold to gardeners. So it seems that Nachal Kidron really does cause vegetation to grow. So Gemara says, "Mekomos yesh bo." There are different places on Nachal Kidron. Yesh makom megadol tzmachim. There are certain places which grow vegetation. Yesh makom she'em megadol tzmachim. There are certain places that don't grow vegetation. So therefore, when the pasuk says, when Rabbi Yotzim is saying, trying to prove from Asa that Asa had ground up his mother's idols and threw them into Nachal Kidron, that must have been a place where vegetation did not grow. Tosas does point out over here that in terms of the question of that it's sold to gardeners, it's not necessarily the most compelling question, because it never says, even though it might simply sound like that, the Brisa never says it's sold to gardeners who lived by Nachal Kidron, whose gardens or their farms were by Nachal Kidron. It could be went down to Nachal Kidron, and these gardeners came from other places to buy this blood for fertilizer. So the Gemara really could have said that. Tosas points that out, but instead the Gemara gives this answer of that it's different. There are different places in Nachal Kidron. The Gemara goes further, and the Gemara just wants to discuss for a second. This is not related to the topic of Rabbi Yossi, Machlokas of Rabbi Yossi and the Rabbanon. The Gemara wants to discuss what does it mean in this pasuk miflotzasa. What does that mean when the pasuk said that Macha, the mother of Asa, that he had removed her because she made for Asherah miflatzes. What is a miflatzes? What's that referring to? So Amar Rabbi Yehuda said to have a mifalia leitzanusa, which Rashi explains to mean that she did a leitzanos mufla. She did a bewildering leitzanos, a bewildering act of lewdness. And what she do? That the Gemara says that Ketani Rav Yosef, like Rav Yosef taught, Min Zachros Asala, she made on the idol, on the Asherah, she formed on the Asherah something that was like a male organ, vice in the and she would live with it b'chol yom, every day. She would do this tremendously inappropriate act with the idol. That's what miflatzasa means, and this is what Asa took to grind up and put it in the river. So so fine. So that's that. Now we're going to go back to Rabbi Yossi to try and bring another proof. Amr lahem Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Yossi said to them, "Valo kvar nemar." The pasuk says, "The kites nochosh nechoshes asher also Moshe." That this is by which king is it by? I'm forgetting which king it's by. Chizkiah. So by Chizkiah, he was trying to get rid of all the idols of the Jews, and it says that he broke down the Asherah and he crushed the snake, the iron snake that Moshe had made, because until these days the Jews would serve it. They called it nechushtan. That we know that there's a certain episode in the Torah the Jews had sinned and Hashem had afflicted them with these snakes to punish them. And he had told Moshe that in order for the Jews to be healed, you have to make a snake, a metal snake, and the Jews are going to look at it, and that's going to cause them to pray, and that's going to cause an end to the plague. And it worked. But the Jews held on to the snake, and eventually over time it developed that they ended up serving this snake as an idol. So Chizkiah made sure to pound it and get rid of it to stop the Jews from serving as an idol. So Rabbi Yossi is assuming that when it says that he ground it up, that therefore he scattered it as well. And we see that there's no concern that's going to be used there's no concern that it's going to be used as zevel, used as fertilizer. So Amrlo, they said to Misham Raya, is from there a proof? The Reu Omer, the pasuk says, "Vayomer Hashem al Moshe, aseh lechosarov." The pasuk says, when in that account of the plague of the snakes, it says Hashem told Moshe, make for yourself a saraf, make for yourself this burning snake. So we make a drasha l'cha, aseh l'cha for you, mishal l'cha, from that which belongs to you, meaning make it from your own personal belongings. The ein adam oser davar sheinu shelo, and a person cannot cause something to be forbidden, something that does not belong to him. Something belongs to someone else, a person can't make that forbidden to get benefit from. So therefore, even though the Jews did serve this as an idol, there was no prohibition of getting benefit from it because it wasn't their property. It belonged to Moshe, and I guess at this point to Moshe's descendants. So once the Gemara says that, the Gemara is bothered by, okay, fine. So if it was really permitted to get benefit from, so why do you have to grind it up? So the Gemara says, "Bahasam," and there, "B'dinu dikasusi la." Really, he didn't need to grind it up because it's permitted to get benefit from it. Since he saw that the Jews were making mistakes after it, meaning they were going and serving it, he went and he ground it up just to make a public viewing of that. He's going and grinding up this Avodah Zora so people see that he does not approve of idols. But not because in essence in and of itself it needed to be ground up, because it's not prohibited to get benefit from it. It belonged to Moshe. So the Rabbanon successfully defended from Rabbi Yossi's proof again. So now Rabbi Yossi goes one more time. He says, Amar Lahem, he said to them, V'lo kfar nemar, doesn't the pasuk say, V'yazvu shamas atzabeim, Vayisoim David v'Anasham, and they left their atzavim, which means that's referring to images of idols. And it says Vayisoim David v'Anasham, and David and his men, they lifted them up. So literally, this means they picked them up. But the Gemara says, "My mashma tahai Vayisoim David lishna dizruyehu." From where is it implied? From where do we see that these words Vayisoim David is a language that's conveying to us that he scattered it? Meaning, we want the Gemara feels that these words Vayisoim David, literally doesn't mean that. The pasuk is conveying that he scattered the idols into the wind. So the Gemara is saying, where do we know that these words Vayisoim, this word Vayisoim means a language that's a language of scattering? It's like that which Rav Yosef translates. Tizorim v'ruach tisoim. This is a pasuk in Yeshaya. It says tizorim, which is the same word of zruye, of scattering. V'ruach tisoim, and the wind shall lift it up. The same word tisoim as vayisoim David. Mitargaminon, and we translate it tizrinun v'ruach tataltalinun. You should scatter it, and the wind will move it. The wind will scatter it. So we see that the word tisoim goes together with the tazrinon, which means the scattering. So therefore, in this pasuk, we're going to say when it says Vayisoim David, that means he caused it to scatter. So we see is that when David, when it came to these images, these idols, he wasn't concerned when scattering it that people are going to get benefit from it as it being fertilizer. So the Gemara says, Amrulo Misham Raya, is from there a proof. Harei Omer, but the pasuk says, this pasuk in Divrei Yomim, when recounting the same account, it says that when David came, by Yisrafu v'eish, he burnt it with the fire. Umidoloksiv v'yisrafim v'yisoim shmami no v'yisoim mamish. The fact it doesn't put it together, and the pasuk doesn't say, it doesn't recount us both things, and it doesn't say he burnt it and then he scattered the wind. Rather, over here it just says he burnt it, and in our pasuk in Malachim, it just says, I'm sorry, not Malachim, in Shmuel, in our pasuk in Shmuel, it just says that he had scattered it. So must be that it really wasn't scattering. Rather, what Veisoim means is that Shmami no Veisoim mamish. It says Veisoim, so Veisoim, it doesn't mean like we're trying to translate it. It means he scattered it. Rather, it means he literally lifted it up. That it was they took it with them, and then they ended up burning it. And Rashi points out that just from the pasuk of a Yisrael of age they burnt it, you can't ask anything from there because burning in and of itself doesn't cause fertilizer. It's only when it's ground up, so then that would cause that issue. We're up to Mikol Makom Kashu Kroya Adadi. Where it is exactly in the art school. No. Okay, perfect. Yeah. So the Gemara says, but nevertheless, Kashu Kroya Adadi. These psukim are a contradiction. That the pasuk about Yisafru sounds like that it's forbidden to get benefit from it, and therefore was needed to get burnt. But the pasuk of Vayisoim, which were translating it literally, meaning he literally lifted them up, these idols. So that's mashma. That implies that you could get benefit from it. So it seems to be a contradiction. So Gemara says, Kid Rav Huna. The way to answer this is like Rav Huna. Rav Huna Rami. Rav Huna asks a contradiction. Ksiv, the pasuk says, Vayomer David, Vayisrafu v'eish. David said, and they burnt it in fire. This is a pasuk of Divrei Yomi that we referenced before. I'm sorry, I just went up a few lines. He says, "Vayomer David Yisrafu v'eish." Uksiv vayiseim, and the pasuk says vayisoim. Lo kasha kan kodim sheba iti agiti, kan achar sheba iti agiti. That one was before iti agiti came, and one was after. Meaning iti agiti was a person, was a non-Jew who came, and he was mevatel. He nullified the idols. So therefore, prior to him coming, it needs to get burnt because you can't get benefit from it. They're idols. But once he came, so then you can just take it and get benefit from it in its whole state because they're now batal. Diksiv, as the pasuk says, "Vayikach hasateras malkam me'al rosho umishkala kikar zahav." He took the crown of their king from on its head, and its weight was a kikar of gold. Now, when it's not over here, when it says Ateras Malcolm, it's referring to when it says the crown of their king. It's not referring to the crown of the actual physical king, but rather it's referring to the Bnei Ammon, the sons of Ammon. Is referring to their idol, and they would call their idol their king, and they made this huge crown for their idol, and the pasuk relates to us that David had taken it, that it was on the head of David. So we see umi shari, is this permitted? Isuri anonu. It was used for an idol that's prohibited to get benefit from it. How could David have worn it? So Amar Nachman, iti agiti bo bidla. He came and he was mevatel it. So we see from here that we see from here that
how do you mevatel it? Did he do hakbah? Was that enough to do it?
No, as he says that the non-Jew says that this no longer has anything to do with idols.
He has to take a kinyan from him first, right? To do that.
But I think earlier we were saying about kinyan was that if a Jew does a kinyan, an idol, he can no longer be mevatel.
He can no longer mevatel it, but then he would have to take. Wouldn't there have to be the kinyan from a non-Jew before they can mevatel it?
I'm not sure about that. We said earlier that a non-Jew could be mevatel something that doesn't belong to him. Mevatel idol shalov. So that was one of the things we learned out from the story with Rabbi Elazar Akfar, that he forced this non-Jew to.
He could just say I'm mevatel that, but then can another non-Jew say that is right. Like I bow down to that. I mean, it'd be like a.
I hear that, right?
Interesting, right.
Right, usually to be mevatel, you really need to do some sort of an action,
like the damage it.
Right, damage in some way. But over here, it doesn't sound that way. So yeah, I'm not sure what the details were exactly.
Sorry, seems like a fitting place to go. Put it on David's head.
Yeah. So, well, the Gemara is about to ask about it. The Gemara says that that mishkol kikar zov hechi motzi manachla, that if it was that heavy, if its weight was a kikar zov, how could it possibly have been on David's head? I mean, maybe to put on the idol, and idols may have stone or whatever it is, it has to be very heavy, but for a human being to wear something this heavy, how could it possibly have been? So Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Rav Uya Lanuach al Rosh David. When the pasuk says that it was by Yonach al Rosh David, it was placed on the head of David, that doesn't literally mean it was on his head, because that really wasn't physically possible. Rather, it just means that it was fitting. It was fitting. This crown was fitting to be on David's head. It was made to the proper size, and it was distinguished enough for it to be on David's head. But ultimately, it wasn't on his head because it was too heavy. Rabbi Yossi Reb Chanina Amar Evan Shoeves Haisiba. The Havas Dorala. There was like a magnet, and Evan Shoeves is a magnet on it, which would cause it to be lifted up. Which Toz explains that he wouldn't wear it all the time. When he was on his throne, he would wear it, and there was a magnet above the throne, and he would wear the crown, and that would cause it to be lifted up based on this magnetic force. And therefore, even though it was very heavy, he was able to wear it. Rabbi Elazar says, "Even Yikara Haisibasha Shava Kikar Zav." When the pasuk says that its weight was that of a Kikar Zav, it wasn't literally that heavy. Rather, it's saying that its weight, in terms of its value, was that of a Kikar Zav, meaning that there was a very, very expensive, rare stone on there, which its value was equal to a Kikar Zav. But the stone was not that heavy. It wasn't a Kikar's weight. It just was equal to that in value. And that's what the pasuk is trying to convey to us. So one of these three answers could explain what it means that it was what it means that it was Vayonach HaRosh David, that it was fitting to be on his head, or that there was a magnet, or that it wasn't really a Kikar Zav, it was just an expensive stone on it. Now the Gemara is going to discuss this a little bit. This is quote a pasuk from Tehillim, which we know David HaMelech wrote, King David wrote. This is from Kufiyat Tes, I believe, which is the longest parak in Tehillim. So it says, Zos haisali, this was to me, ki pikudecha notzarti, because your statutes I guarded. So the Gemara says, my kamar, what's this pasuk referring to? So haki kamar, this is what it's saying. It's char shepikudecha notzarti, in the reward that I guarded your pikudecha, that I rewarded your statute, that I guarded your statutes, Zos haisali le'edus. This was for me for testimony. My etusa, what does it mean? What's the testimony? And it fit. Means this is referring to this crown, and he would put it on the makom tefillin. The makom tefillin is that there's a place on the head above the hairline where that's where a child's head is soft. That's what we know that's where makom tefillin is. So you put it on over there, and this crown would fit perfectly. So this was testimony to the fact that he was really the king, that he's the fitting one because for the kingship, because Hashem is making a miracle to make this crown, this extremely expensive, fancy crown, fit perfectly on David's head. So the Gemara says, but what do you mean? But he needs to put on tefillin. If this is on the place of tefillin, so then you can't put on tefillin. And back then, they would wear tefillin the whole day back then. So the Gemara says, there's enough space on the head that you could put 2 tefillin on it, 2 boxes of tefillin. So therefore, he was able to put on this crown, and this crown was on that spot, which is fitting for tefillin. And he was also able to wear his tefillin as well. They both fit in that spot. Pasuk says, "Vayotziu as ben hamelach, vayitnu alav as a nazer v'as edus." They took out the prince, the son of the king, and they put on him the nazers, the crown, and the testimony. So, nazer zu klila is the crown. Eidos of testimony. Amar Yehuda Amarav. Eidos ulebeis David is testimony for the house of David. Shekola roy la malchus, whoever's fitting for the kingship. Who maso, if this crown fits him properly. Kol she'enu roy la malchus enu maso, and whoever's not fitting for the kingship, it doesn't fit him. A miracle happened with this crown that Hashem made it that whoever was fitting to be the king, this crown fit his head, fit the size of his head. But if he was not fitting, it didn't. And like the pasuk says, Adoniah ben Chagis, Adoniah the son of Chagis, one of David's sons, who tried becoming king and tried staging a revolt to become the king. Misnase, he exalted himself. I will rule. So Amar Rabbi Yehuda Amarav, Rabbi Yehuda Amarav said that what's this? When the pasuk says Misnase, what is it trying to convey to us? He says that saying Shabikesh Lahomo, that where the back puts in the word Shabikesh Lahomo V'lo Maso. He tried to have it fit and it didn't fit. The crown didn't fit on him because he really wasn't supposed to be the king. Shlomo was supposed to be the king.
And this is the crown from the Avodah Zora.
The same crown is passed down through the generations. So this crown did not fit Adoniah, and therefore instead of exalting himself, trying to give propaganda in different regards, saying, "No, I'm going to be king," even though the crown didn't fit him. But Yaslo Rechev Parashim Chamishim Ish Ratzon Lefan. But the pasuk says about Adoniah, and this pasuk we just said says that he made a chariot, and he had these people guiding the chariots, and 50 people running in front of it. So my Ruvusayu, what exactly is so great about these 50 people? The Torah is, if the Navi is telling us that he had 50 people running in front of it, what's the big hurrah? What's so cool about that? What's special about these 50 people that Paul is conveying to us? So it says Tanos on a brayso kulam netule tchol. They're all missing. I think it's their spleen. Yeah, all their spleen is taken out. And they were very, very calloused. They were very on the bottom of their foot. That Rashi explains that they were missing a lot of flesh on the bottom of their foot, and their feet didn't feel anything bothersome. They didn't feel any thorns or pieces that are on the floor. They were able to run very fast. For some reason, if you have a spleen that slows you down, but since their spleen was missing, therefore they were able to run faster. So yeah, these 50 people were able to run really fast. That's what the Navi is conveying to us. Okay, new Mishnah. Shal Proclus ben Flospis is from Gamliel Ba'ako. This is a certain guy. His name was Proclus ben Flospis, and he asked from Gamliel in Akko, Aphrodite. He was washing in the bathhouse of Aphrodite, which was the name of an idol. I think there is a Greek god named Aphrodite. Yeah. So this idol was in the courtyard of this bathhouse. So, and Rabbi Gamliel was washing it. So Amar Lo, he said to him, because of the Torah is written in your Torah, Lo yidbak b'yodcha mu'min me'acherim, can't be attached in your hand anything from the cherem. How could you get benefit from this bathhouse? You're getting benefit from an Avodah Zora. You're getting benefit from an idol. Because of what are you bathing in the bathhouse of Aphrodite? I thought you're not allowed to do that. You can't get benefit from an idol, and you're going and bathing in the bathhouse of Aphrodite. So Amar Lo, he said to me, I can't respond to you in the bathhouse, because if I respond to you, that's gonna be divrei Torah. Those are gonna be words of Torah, and you can't say words of Torah in a bathhouse, because Rashi explains, because people are there unclothed, and words of Torah cannot be said in a place where people are unclothed. So we're gonna have to discuss this outside. When he left, Amar Lo, he said to him, Ani lo vasi b'gvula, he ba b'gvuli. I did not come into its boundary, it came into my boundary. Meaning, Rashi explains that the bathhouse preceded. The bathhouse was there first. And the bathhouse was made for everyone to come to watch. And then this Aphrodite came. So this Aphrodite can't cause and can't steal the usage of it from the rabbin, from public use. Therefore, I could still go and use it. I'm not coming and using what belongs to it. It's using what belongs to me. So he said further, in Omrim, that, I mean, the simple understanding is that this is another response, that in Omrim, or it could be that it's one, there's a discussion among the Rishonim whether this is one response, different responses. I think, right, over here they quote different, on the bottom they quote different versions of whether it says begam. So either it's one response and saying, in Omer Nasa Merchas Noy La Aphrodite, El Omer Nasa Aphrodite Noy La Merchas, that this is showing that it's really coming into my domain, because people don't say, oh, let's make a bathhouse as a beautification for Aphrodite. Rather, they say, let's put an Aphrodite as a beautification for the Merchas. Or you could say it's a different response. Response number one was that the bathhouse preceded. Response number two is that this is not something that, the bathhouse is not something that adorns Aphrodite. Rather, Aphrodite is something that adorns the bathhouse. And therefore, if I go and I wash in it, that's not giving honor to Aphrodite. Rather, Aphrodite is the thing giving honor to the bathhouse. And number three, Davar Acher, another response is that even if we would give you a lot of money, you can't go. You wouldn't go in front of your idol not wearing any clothing, or balkari, or somebody who's impure, that semen came out of you, or if you wouldn't use the bathroom in front of it. But this is standing by the pipe. Everyone's using the bathroom in front of it. So lo nemar Elohayim. The Torah only says Elohayim. We're referring to entering Eretz Yisrael and removing the idols. It says es Elohayim alahorim aramim. So we make a drasha es shenoig bo mishum Eloha aser. That which the non-Jews conduct with it like a god, that's what's forbidden to get benefit from. But that which they don't conduct with it as it being a god, mutter is permitted. Over here, they don't treat it with a proper respect. They don't treat it like it's a god. If your real idol and your real place of worship, no one would go there no one would be this disrespectful and use the bathroom in front of it. Over here, people do that. So that shows that people don't really treat it as a god, and therefore it's permitted to get benefit from it. It is a little bit interesting. I think Toz might discuss this, that from the end of the Mishnah, it seems like they would use the bathroom in front of Aphrodite. If in a place, in terms of the halacha earlier, he was saying Ein Meshivim b'merchatz, which sounds like you only can't speak the words of Torah in the merchatz, in the bathhouse. You could think it. If in a place where people use the bathroom, you're not even allowed to think words of Torah. Like in a bathroom, you can't think about Torah. You could think about Torah in a regular shower area, which is not in a bathroom.
If it's just urination.
Right.
If it's just somebody urinating,
even so, yeah, then you can't think Torah over there. So that is a little bit confusing about that implication from earlier. But okay. So the Gemara says, how could from Gamliel have said in Meshivim b'merchotz, we don't respond words of Torah in the merchotz? How could you have said that? But Omar Rabba Bar Chana said, Omar Rabbi Yochanan, Nim Rabbi Yochanan, b'chol mokom mutar laharer, chutz mi beis merchotz basic easy. Right? The Gemara actually references this halacha that it's mutar to think about words of Torah in all places, except for the Beis HaMerchos, except for the bathhouse, and the Beis HaKisei, and the bathroom. So the Gemara is bothered by is that if you say Ein Meshivim b'merchotz, so that in and of itself are words of Torah. The halacha is I can't respond to you words of Torah in the bathhouse. So he said words of Torah in the bathhouse. We know that that's forbidden because you can't even think words of Torah in the bathhouse or in the bathroom. If you're going to say they didn't say it in Lashon HaKodesh, he said it in Lashon Chol. He said it in just a language which is in Hebrew, and therefore that would be permitted. But Abaye said Dvarim shel Chol mutar l'omer b'Lashon Kodesh. Words of Chol, mundane words that aren't about Torah, you could say in Lashon Kodesh. You could say it in Hebrew, even in a bathhouse or in a bathroom. But Dvarim shel Kodesh also l'omer b'Lashon Chol. Words that are holy, in words of Torah, you can't even say it in a mundane language. Meaning, Torah does not lose its holiness if it's said in a different language. Like right now, we're saying Torah in English; it's still holy. It doesn't make a difference. So, even if he said it in whatever language they spoke, Aramaic, it doesn't make a difference. It's still Torah. So how could he have said this in the bathhouse? How could he have said that we won't respond words of Torah in the bathhouse? So Tana, son of Isaac, Shiyotza, Amar Lo Ein Meshivim Merchotz. He didn't respond that in the bathhouse itself. Rather, they walked out. They walked out, and then when they walked out, he said, "We don't respond words of Torah in the bathhouse, but now I can tell you the answer because now we're outside." They didn't. This incident, these words, Ein Meshivim Merchotz, were not said actually in the bathhouse itself. Okay, the Gemara goes further. Amar Rav Chama bar Yosef. Rav Chama bar Yosef said, "Barivi." The back changes it, which means that Barivi, like we said, we saw this word earlier, means someone who's chashuv, someone who's distinguished. Amar Rav Oshia, and the name of Rav Oshia. Shuva genuva yeshiva Gamliel also hegmel. That Rav Oshia said that this response from Gamliel responds to Shuva genuva. It's a stolen response, meaning he pulled the wool over his eyes. It's not really a good response. That which he said back. But Vani to that hegmon, to that officer. But Vani Omer, I myself feel. Rav Chama is saying, I myself feel. Ena genuva. It's not stolen. It is a good response. So Magnuv say, what about this response is not a good response? The Kamarlo Zoom as al Piabiv. He said this is on the pipe. And every person is urinating in front of it. So he was trying to show that okay, fine. So that means that it doesn't have the prestige of being an idol. So the Gemara says, for now, my have it. But why does it make a difference the fact that people are urinating in front of it? But Amar Rava Pa'or, Yochiach Pa'or shows us not this way. Shemifar in the front of Bechol Yomi Avodah. They would use the bathroom in front of it every day, and it wasn't batal. Meaning the Torah tells us about the idol Baal Pa'or, and the way they actually served it was by putting excrement in front of it. They would actually use the bathroom in front of it. That was their way of serving it. That was somehow gave prestige to it. So we see from here, and this Rava is not talking over here, but Rava said this somewhere else, but this shows us this. We see from here is that that's not a good response. Why does it make a difference that people are urinating in front of it? Vani Omer, but I say Eina Gnuba. Then no, it's not so. It is a good response. Why? What about why is it any different than Pa'ar? Zu Avodah Zora. Pa'ar, the way of serving it was through doing this, was through using the bathroom in front of it. But Vizu ain't Avodah Zora. Aphrodite or Aphrodite, the way of serving it was not through using the bathroom in front of it. It just happened to be in the position where it was by a bathhouse. That's what people did. So if it's the way of serving it, so then yes, it won't be batal because that's the normal way. That is the way of serving the idol. But if not, then that's a way of taking away from its prestige, because you have an idol which is usually served in a more normal fashion, and now people are using the bathroom in front of it, so that takes away from its prestige, and therefore there was a good response to that which Rabbi Gamliel said. Abaye Abaye says that Gnuvasa Mayhocha. Abaye says actually that I disagree with you. That which Rav Oshi was saying, it's a tshuva gnuva, that he pulled the wool over his eyes, and it's not a good response. It was because of this. Meaning the first response that he said. The first response that he said that I'm not coming into its domain, it's coming into my domain. That sounds like had he been going into the domain of Avodah, the Avodah preceded the bathhouse, then it would be forbidden. But Batanan, Bastana Mishnah, Bodis Kochavim, and idol Sheishla Merchatz, that has a bathhouse, Ogina, or a garden. Then man, you could get benefit from it. The Lo Betova, without giving thanks to the priests. Because if you give thanks to the priests, so that's like giving benefit to the Avodah Zora. But just using it of itself, that's not a problem, because something designated for Avodah Zora, if it in of itself is not served as an Avodah Zora, then there's no hektish for Avodah Zora. Right? Like for us, we have hektish, that if you designate something for the Beis Hamikdash, even if it's not used actually in the Beis Hamikdash, it's hektish. It has a certain holiness, and from that designation, there's no hektish for Avodah Zora. Therefore, even if something's designated for Avodah Zora, if it's not actually served, there's no prohibition of getting benefit from it. So why is Rabbi Gamliel implying that had Avodah preceded this bad, that would be forbidden? And therefore, that's what's stolen, so to speak, about this response, not a good response. Vani Omer, I say, ain't of it's not stolen. Shelo b'tovas Rabbi Gamliel give b'tovas acherim dami. Because Rabbi Gamliel doesn't give thank you. Rabbi Gamliel wouldn't say thank you. That's like when others say thank you. Because Rabbi Gamliel was a very, very prestigious individual. He was a distinguished individual. He was like a celebrity. And therefore, if you have a celebrity use your bathhouse, it doesn't make a difference whether he says thank you or not. That gives pleasure to the princes. That gives benefit to the princes, to the priests. I'm sorry, the priests of the Avodah Zora. And therefore, Rabbi Gamliel had no way of using this had after that came first, and not for the fact that the bathhouse preceded it. Rav Simi Bar Chia Omar Gnuvas Mehacha. Rav Simi Bar Chia says, you know what's stolen about this response? You know why this response is shaky? It's from here. He said that this is on the pipe and everyone's urinating in front of it. But if people are urinating in front of it, why does that make a difference? But Tanan, but saw in the Mishnah, Rok b'fanel. If a person spits in front of the idol, Hishtim b'fanel, urinates in front of it. Girura, he drags it. Zorak ba'as atzoa, he throws on an excrement. Harezu ein betela, does not become bottle. It does not become bottle just because he got angry at it once. It could just be that he just one time he got angry at its idol. He did this to show his how angry he is. The guy shows how angry he is at the idol, but it doesn't come bottle because of that. So Vani Omer Eina Gnuva, but I say no, it's not a stolen response. This is a good response. Why? Hasam fi shaita hu rasach Allah. There just for one moment he gets angry and then he appeases it. He makes up. He comes back to be on good terms again with the idol. But here, it's constantly every moment in a state of zilzal, in a state of degradation. People are constantly going and using the bathroom on it, and therefore that does cause it to become batal. It's only if it's a one-time thing. The guy lost his temper, something bad happened to him, and he's blaming the idol. That's where it doesn't become batal. But over here, where it's consistent, then it really would become batal. So that's Rav Simrachia's opinion of what Rav Oshim meant that's stolen, so to speak, that it was not a good response, and why he felt it was a good response. Rabbi Bar Ula said, the reason why it's stolen is from here. He said to him, Ein omrim nasa merchatz noila Aphrodite, ela nasa Aphrodite noila merchatz. That second response, which he said, which Rabbi Gamliel said, which was, people don't say, let's make the merchatz, let's make the bathhouse as a beautification for Aphrodite. Rather, they say, let's put Aphrodite here as a beautification for the merchatz. And Rabbi Gamliel said, therefore, if I go and I use this and I bathe in it, that's not giving respect to Aphrodite, because the bathhouse is not the adornment of Aphrodite. Rather, Aphrodite is the adornment of the bathhouse. But My habit that had they said, let's make the bathhouse as a beautification for Aphrodite, why would that change anything? Meaning, the implication from Gamliel is that it had been made as a beautification for Aphrodite, then it really would be a problem. It's only because Aphrodite is a beautiful beautification in the bathhouse, that's why it's not. But Vatani saw in a brisa, Homer the person says this house is dedicated to idol worship. This cup is dedicated to idol worship, then lo amar klum. It doesn't account for anything. It's not forbidden to get benefit from it. That rule which we referenced before, that just because a person designates something with his mouth for idol worship, it doesn't make a difference. There's no hektish. The only thing that causes something forbidden to get causes something to get prohibited to get benefit from by idols is if the guy actually goes and uses it. He actually uses it to serve it. But over here, whereas he just motzi b'peh, he just says that's designated for idol worship, that doesn't prohibit it to get benefit from it. There's no hektish. So that's why Rabbi Gamliel's response isn't a good response. He's only going halfway. He implies that had they made this bathhouse a beautification of Aphrodite, that would be forbidden. What do you mean? It's only designated. It wasn't actually used and wasn't actually served. But I say it's not stolen. Nihidit tzuri lo mitzvah. Granted, it wouldn't prohibit it. Noi miha ika. However, bathing in it is a beautification to the idols, and it's also forbidden to beautify idols. Meaning that even though it's not prohibited to get benefit from it, the bathhouse really is not prohibited to get benefit from it. There's no hektish for idol worship. But bathing in it is beautifying the idol. That's, so to speak, that's adorning the idol through bathing in it. And therefore, it's going to be also from a different track. The track called you're not allowed to beautify and give respect to an idol. And therefore, if you would bathe in it, that would be doing that. And therefore, it would be forbidden because of that. Okay, Yoshikov.